There is a moment, I think, in every marriage, if you're paying attention, when you realize you're living with a stranger. Not the dramatic kind. Not the movie kind where you find a second phone or a hidden bank account. I'm talking about the quiet kind. The kind that happens over breakfast when you're buttering toast and you look up and the person across from you smiles, but it doesn't reach their eyes anymore. And you tell yourself you're imagining things. You tell yourself it's stress, it's work, it's the weather, it's anything but what your gut is already whispering. That was me 3 years ago, sitting in my kitchen, watching my husband, David, stare out the window at nothing. The toast went cold. The coffee went cold. And I sat there, holding a butter knife, feeling like I was holding the only real thing left in the room. I need you to understand something before we go any further. I need you to know who I was back then. I was the reliable one, the steady one, the sister who showed up early to help set up the party, the wife who remembered anniversaries and ironed shirts and never, ever made a scene. I believed, truly believed, that if you just loved someone enough, if you just tried hard enough, you could outlast any storm. I believed that marriage was a promise you kept even when you didn't feel like it, especially when you didn't feel like it. David and I had been together for 11 years, met in college. He was studying architecture, I was in social work. He built things, I fixed things. It made sense on paper. It made sense in photographs. We had the house, the dog, the calendar full of dinner parties with friends who envied our stability. And for a long time, I think we did love each other. Or at least, we loved the idea of each other. The versions of ourselves we became when we were together. But ideas crumble, and versions of people fade. The trouble started, though I didn't know to call it trouble then, about 8 months before everything fell apart. Small things. David started working late, not occasionally, constantly. He'd come home at 10, 11, sometimes after midnight, smelling like the office, like stress, like something I couldn't quite name. When I asked, he'd say the project was demanding. The client was difficult. The deadlines were crushing him, and I believed him, or I wanted to believe him. Then there was the phone, face down on the counter, always face down. And if it buzzed while I was nearby, he'd move so quickly to pick it up, so casually, so practiced, that I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that trust meant not asking questions. That love meant giving space. But here's what nobody tells you about betrayal. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't knock on your door with proof and evidence and a clear path forward. It seeps in through the cracks. It sits in your chest during dinner parties while you're laughing at someone's joke, and suddenly you can't breathe and you don't know why. It wakes you up at 3 a.m. with a weight on your sternum that feels like drowning. I started having dreams. Not nightmares exactly, just dreams where I was searching for something. Walking through empty houses, opening doors to rooms that didn't exist. Calling David's name and hearing nothing back. I'd wake up with my heart racing, and he'd be asleep beside me, turned away, and I'd stare at his back and wonder when he'd started sleeping like that. Facing the wall. Creating distance even in unconsciousness. My sister, Alina, noticed before I did. Or at least, she was the first one to say something out loud. We were having coffee at her apartment. She's 2 years younger than me, the artistic one, the free spirit. She'd never married, never wanted to. She traveled, she painted, she collected interesting people and stories like other people collected stamps. I envied her sometimes, her lightness, her ability to walk away from things that didn't serve her. "You seem tired," she said, stirring her coffee, not looking at me. "I am tired," I admitted. It's just a busy season at work." She nodded, took a sip. Then, "Is it?" Just 2 words, but they landed like stones. "What do you mean?" She finally looked at me then. And her eyes, green like our mother's, like mine, held something I couldn't read. Pity, maybe, or knowledge. The way you look at someone who's about to walk into a door they don't see. "I mean," she said carefully, "that people don't usually look the way you look unless something's broken. And you look broken, Sarah. You look like you've been broken for a while." I should have pressed her. I should have asked what she meant, what she knew, why she was looking at me like that. But I didn't. Because some part of me, some part that had been keeping the truth at bay through sheer force of will, knew that if I asked, I'd have to listen to the answer. And I wasn't ready. So I changed the subject. I talked about our mother's upcoming birthday, about the family reunion we were planning for the summer, about the cake I was supposed to order. I filled the space between us with noise, and Alina let me. She always let me. That was the thing about my sister. She never pushed. She just waited for you to catch up to what she already saw. That conversation stayed with me, though. It followed me home. It sat with me in the dark while David worked another late night. And I started to wonder, really wonder, what I was so afraid of finding. If stories like this speak to you, subscribe to the channel for more real-life emotional journeys. I'll be here, sharing the truths we don't always want to face. The summer arrived like it always did in our town, slow, humid, inevitable. The kind of heat that makes everything feel slightly unreal, like you're walking through a dream. Our family reunion was scheduled for the 4th of July weekend at my parents' lake house. It was tradition. Had been since I was a child. 3 days of cousins and aunts and uncles, of potato salad and fireworks, and the particular chaos of people who share blood and history trying to coexist in close quarters. I used to love it. The noise, the familiarity, the sense of belonging to something larger than myself. But that year, I dreaded it. David had been more distant than ever, and I'd stopped asking about work. We moved through the house like ghosts of ourselves, passing in hallways, exchanging logistical information. "Did you pay the electric bill? We're out of milk," your mother called, without ever really touching each other, without ever really seeing each other. 3 days before the reunion, I found the text. Not because I was looking. I want to be clear about that. I wasn't the wife who snooped. I was the wife who trusted too much, who believed that privacy was sacred, who never once in 11 years had gone through his pockets or his phone or his email. I was looking for a takeout menu. That's all. We were going to order Thai, and I knew he had the number saved in his messages from the last time. I picked up his phone. He was in the shower, the water running, steam seeping under the bathroom door, and I opened the messaging app. And there it was, not the takeout place. A thread with no name, just a number, but I knew the number. I'd called it 1,000 times in my life. Alina. The last message was from that morning, from David. It said, "Can't wait to see you this weekend. I need to hold you. I need to tell you everything." I read it 3 times, 4. The words didn't change. They stayed there, black on white, burning into my retinas like I'd stared at the sun. "Can't wait to see you. I need to hold you. I need to tell you everything." The shower turned off. I heard him step out, humming something tuneless. I placed the phone back on the counter, exactly where I'd found it face down. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking, but I walked to the bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed. And when he came in, towel around his waist, smiling his normal smile, I smiled back. I don't know how I did that. I don't know where that performance came from. Some primal survival instinct, maybe. Some part of me that knew, even then, that I needed time. I needed to think. I needed to understand what I was looking at before I reacted. He got dressed. We ordered Thai. We watched a movie. I have no idea which one, and I laughed in the right places. I went to bed beside him. I listened to him fall asleep, his breathing evening out, his body relaxing into the mattress that we'd bought together, that we'd chosen because it was firm but not too firm, because it would last. And I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling like the floor had disappeared beneath me, feeling like I was falling through space with nothing to grab onto. My husband, my sister, the two people I trusted most in the world. How long? How long had this been happening? Was it new, this thing between them? Or had I been blind for years, walking through my life while they what? Met in secret, made plans, laughed about me. The questions were acid. They ate through everything. Through my memories, through my sense of reality, through the story I'd been telling myself about who I was and what my life meant. I thought about calling Alina, confronting her, demanding answers, but something stopped me. Some instinct, some voice that said, wait, watch, learn. I didn't understand it then, but I think I was already preparing. Already shifting from the woman who accepted things to the woman who would eventually, well, you'll see, the reunion. That was the thing. They were planning to see each other there. Can't wait to see you this weekend. My parents' lake house. Our family's sacred space. The place where I'd learned to swim, where I'd had my first kiss, where David and I had announced our engagement 11 years ago, surrounded by the people who loved us. The audacity of it took my breath away, or maybe it was the intimacy. They weren't meeting in some anonymous hotel. They were meeting in my place, in the heart of my history. They were going to look me in the eye, hug me, pass me the potato salad, all while carrying this secret between them like a pregnancy. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. I moved through the final preparations for the trip in a kind of trance, packing bags, checking lists, answering David's questions with automatic responses. He didn't notice, or if he noticed, he didn't care. He was distracted, I realized now. Distracted by anticipation, by the thought of her. We drove to the lake house on Friday morning. David behind the wheel, sunglasses on, drumming his fingers on the steering wheel to music I couldn't hear. I watched the countryside roll by, green and gold in the July sun, and I felt something hardening in my chest. Not anger, exactly. Not yet. Something colder. Something that felt like resolve. My parents greeted us at the door. Mom with her flour-dusted apron, Dad with his gruff hug that lasted exactly 2 seconds, as always. The house smelled like cinnamon and old wood and summer. It should have felt like coming home. Instead, it felt like walking onto a stage. Alina's already here, Mom said, taking my bag. She arrived last night. She's out on the dock painting. David's hand tightened on my shoulder, just for a second, just enough that I felt it. I turned to look at him. He was smiling at my mother, asking about the drive, about the weather, about whether Uncle Joe was coming this year. The perfect son-in-law, the actor in a play only he and I knew was happening, but I knew now. I was in the audience and the performance at the same time. Go say hi to your sister, Mom said. I'll get you both some lemonade. I walked through the house I knew by heart, past the photographs on the wall, Alina and me as children, gap-toothed and sunburned. Our wedding photo, David looking at the camera while I looked at him. The family timeline, marching forward, documenting moments that meant everything to me and apparently nothing to them. The back door was open. I could see the lake, silver and still in the afternoon light. And I could see Alina sitting on the dock with her easel, brush in hand, her dark hair loose down her back. She was wearing the yellow dress I'd given her for her birthday, the one I'd thought looked like sunshine. She turned as I stepped onto the dock, and she smiled. That wide, uncomplicated Alina smile that had lit up my whole life. "Sarah," she said, setting down her brush. "You're here." I looked at her. I really looked, at the flush in her cheeks, at the way her eyes went immediately past me to the house, searching, at the guilt she wore so lightly, like a perfume I was only now learning to smell. "I'm here," I said, and my voice sounded strange to me, distant, calm. "We're both here." Like this video, if this story touched something inside you, it helps others find these words, these truths we carry. The first 24 hours were a masterclass in pretense. I watched them, the two people who knew me best, who'd held my secrets and my trust, navigate the crowded rooms of my parents' house with the precision of dancers who'd rehearsed this choreography for months. They never touched. That was the thing that struck me most. They were careful, so careful. When David handed Alina a plate at dinner, his fingers didn't brush hers. When she laughed at something he said, she looked at the group, not at him. They maintained a radius of appropriate space, of appropriate conversation, of appropriate everything. And I watched it all with the terrible clarity of someone who's finally put on glasses after years of squinting. Every avoided glance was a confession. Every casual reference to the other day was a code I was learning to break. They'd been seeing each other regularly. While I was at work, while I was running errands, while I was living my life in the blind faith that my marriage was solid, that my sister was my ally, that I was safe. Saturday passed in a haze of barbecue smoke and children's laughter and the kind of small talk that requires no real presence. I played my part. I helped Mom in the kitchen. I listened to Dad's stories about his golf game. I hugged cousins I hadn't seen in years and accepted their compliments about how happy David and I looked, how solid, how enviable. David was charming. He always was. He fixed Uncle Joe's broken lounge chair. He played catch with my cousin's kids down by the water. He put his arm around me in the group photos, pulled me close, pressed a kiss to my temple that felt like a brand. "See?" That kiss said, "See how much I love her." But I could feel the tension in his fingers. I could feel the way his eyes kept drifting to the dock, where Alina sat with her sketchbook, pretending to draw the landscape while the landscape drew her. That night, after the fireworks, after the children had been put to bed, and the adults sat around the fire pit with wine and the kind of tired contentment that comes from full days, I found my moment. David had gone inside to use the bathroom. Alina was alone on the dock, wrapped in a sweater against the cooling night air. The lake was black and still, reflecting the stars. I walked down the wooden planks, my footsteps loud in the quiet, and sat beside her. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The fire crackled behind us. Someone laughed, distant and muffled. "You're quiet," Alina said finally. She didn't look at me. She was staring at the water, at her own reflection broken by small ripples. "I'm thinking," I said. "About what?" "About trust, about how fragile it is. About how we think we know the people closest to us, but really, we only know what they choose to show us." She turned then, and in the starlight, I saw something flicker across her face. Fear, maybe, or recognition. That's pretty heavy for a Saturday night," she said, trying for lightness. "Is it?" I held her gaze. Alina, look at me, really look at me, and tell me I'm imagining things. Silence. The lake lapped against the dock. A loon called somewhere in the dark, lonely and searching. Sarah, don't. My voice was steady. I was proud of that steadiness. Don't say my name like that. Don't use that tone. The one that says you're worried about me, that you're my protective little sister. Don't perform, Alina. I'm too tired to watch the show. She looked away. Her hands were clasped in her lap, white-knuckled. How long? I asked. She didn't answer. How? Long? A year. The word was barely audible. Maybe a little more. Sarah, it's not. A year. I repeated it, tasting it, letting it become real. So while I was planning our 10th anniversary trip, while I was in therapy trying to understand why I felt so disconnected from my husband, while I was calling you, crying, asking if you thought something was wrong with me, with us, you were already, it wasn't like that. Her voice broke. It started as friendship. He was lonely, you were both lonely. I was listening, I was there. You were there. I laughed, and it sounded wrong, harsh, and sharp. Yes, you were there, in my marriage. In my bed, apparently, though I haven't asked for those details yet. How generous of you, Alina, how supportive. Stop. She was crying now. Please, I know how it looks. I know what I've done, but I love him. I love you. I never meant for any of this to happen. You love him. I stood up. The dock swayed slightly beneath my feet. You love him, and you love me. That's convenient. That's really something. I walked back to the house. My legs were steady. My hands were not. I found David in the kitchen, getting a glass of water, and I stood in the doorway watching him. Watching the man I'd built a life with, who'd stood in front of our friends and family and promised forever, who was now wiping tears from another woman's face while I stood in the dark. He turned, saw me, and whatever he saw in my expression made the glass slip from his hand. It shattered on the tile, water spreading like a stain. Sarah, don't, I said, echoing my words to Alina. Don't say my name. You don't get to say my name anymore. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who's standing at a crossroads they never asked for. The night before the reveal, that's how I think of it now, I didn't sleep. I sat on the screened porch of my parents' lake house, listening to the lake breathe, watching the moon track across the sky. I had options. I knew I had options. I could confront them both privately, demand a divorce, walk away with whatever dignity I could salvage. I could tell my parents, let them handle it, let the family fracture along lines I didn't draw. Or I could do what I did. I need you to understand that it wasn't revenge exactly. Or not just revenge, it was clarity. It was the need to stop performing. To stop being the only person in this triangle who didn't know the rules, who didn't see the board. For 11 years, I had been the steady one, the reliable one, the one who kept the peace and smoothed the edges and made sure everyone was comfortable. And where had it gotten me? To this porch, in this dark, with my heart in pieces while the people who broke it slept in rooms down the hall. Sunday was the big day. The official reunion day, with the cookout and the group photo and the annual family meeting where we discussed the care of my aging grandparents, the maintenance of the lake house, the traditions we wanted to preserve. Everyone would be there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, second cousins, the whole sprawling network of people who shared my name, my history, my blood. I woke up calm. That's the strangest part. I woke up with a kind of peace I hadn't felt in months, maybe years. I dressed carefully in white, which felt like armor, like a statement. I did my hair, my makeup. I looked in the mirror and I saw myself clearly for the first time in a long time. Not David's wife, Not Alina's responsible older sister. Just Sarah, just me. Breakfast was chaos as always. Pancakes and bacon and coffee and children running between legs. David sat across from me, making conversation with my father about fishing. Alina arrived late, pale, avoiding my eyes. She sat at the far end of the table, next to cousin Marcy, and pushed food around her plate. I waited. I helped Mom clear the dishes. I played with my niece. I let the morning unfold in its normal rhythm, let the comfort of routine settle over the house like a blanket. And then, at 11 o'clock, when everyone had gathered on the lawn for the group photo, the annual tradition, the documentation of us, I made my move. My father had set up the tripod. He was fussing with the timer, as he always did, complaining about technology. The family arranged themselves in the familiar formation, elders in front, children held on laps, the rest of us standing behind, creating rows of smiling faces. David stood to my right, his hand on my waist. Alina stood 3 people down next to our mother. "Everyone ready?" Dad called. Big smiles, "This is for the album." I stepped forward. Just one step out of the formation into the space in front of the camera where only the children usually stood. "Actually," I said, and my voice carried. It surprised me how far it carried. "Before we take the photo, there's something I need to say." Silence fell like a curtain. 50 faces turned toward me. I saw confusion, curiosity, a few indulgent smiles. "Oh, Sarah's going to make a speech, how nice." I looked at David. His hand had fallen from my waist. He was staring at me with dawning horror, with the look of a man who's just realized the ground is about to open beneath his feet. I looked at Alina. She had gone white as paper. She shook her head, barely perceptible. "Don't." "I've always loved this tradition," I said, and my voice was steady, conversational, the voice I used in my social work, the voice that calmed frightened children and angry parents. The group photo, the documentation of our family, the proof that we're here together, that we belong to each other. I paused. The wind moved through the trees. A child whimpered and was shushed. But I've been thinking about what family means, about what loyalty means, about the promises we make to each other and what happens when we break them. My mother stepped forward. "Sarah, honey, what's going on?" "I found out 2 days ago," I continued, as if she hadn't spoken, "that my husband, David, has been having an affair. For over a year, with my sister, Alina." The sound that followed was, I don't know how to describe it, not gasps exactly, more like the air being sucked out of the space. Like a collective breath held too long. I heard someone, Aunt Patricia, I think, say, "Oh my God," in a whisper that sounded like a shout. David made a noise. "Sarah, please." And I thought, I went on, turning to face him, to face all of them, that the 3 of us should take a photo together. A special photo, to remember this moment. Because I think it's important to document the truth, don't you? Not just the smiling faces, the real faces, the faces we hide behind. Alina was crying now, silent tears tracking down her cheeks. David had his hands out, palms up, that gesture of supplication that I'd seen him use in arguments, in negotiations, in moments when he needed to seem reasonable. "Sarah, stop," he said. This isn't the place. We can talk about this. We can." "Where is the place, David?" I asked, and my voice finally broke, finally showed the crack that had been widening inside me for months. "Where is the appropriate venue for me to say that my husband has been sleeping with my sister? Should I have scheduled a meeting? Sent a calendar invite? Betrayal discussion, conference room B?" My father moved then, stepped between us, his face purple with rage. "David, is this true?" David couldn't speak. He looked at Alina, helpless, and that look of shared desperation, of partnership in crisis, was worse than anything. It proved it. It made it real in a way my words hadn't. "Dad," I said, gently, putting my hand on his arm. "Dad, don't. This isn't about him anymore. This is about me. This is about me finally telling the truth." I turned back to the family, to the crowd of shocked faces, to the children who didn't understand and the elders who understood too well. "I'm not asking you to choose sides," I said. "I'm not asking for justice or revenge or even an apology. I'm just asking to be seen, to stop pretending, to stop being the only one in the dark while the people I loved lit matches around me." I looked at Alina. Really looked at her, my sister, my only sibling, the person who'd held my hand through our mother's surgery, who'd flown across the country when I had my miscarriage, who knew my fears and my dreams and every secret I'd ever had. "I loved you," I said. "Both of you, I loved you so much. And you used that love like it was nothing, like it was renewable, infinite, something you could spend and I would just regenerate. But I'm not regenerating, I'm just done. Leave a comment. I read every single one. Tell me what you would have done. Tell me if you've ever had to choose between truth and peace." The silence that followed lasted forever, or maybe it was only seconds. Time does strange things when you're standing in the wreckage of your own life, when you've just detonated the bomb you've been carrying, when you're waiting to see who runs and who stays. My mother was the first to move. She walked to me, not to Alina, not to David, but to me, and she took my face in her hands. She didn't speak. She just looked at me, her eyes searching mine, and I saw the moment she understood. The moment she saw the damage, the months of it, the years of it. She pulled me into her arms, and I buried my face in her shoulder, smelling flower and lavender and the particular scent of Mom that had meant safety since I was small. Around us, chaos was erupting. I heard David trying to explain, heard the rise of angry voices, my father's, my uncle's, the family closing ranks in the way families do when one of their own is threatened. I heard Alina sobbing, heard someone leading her away, heard the shuffle of feet as people retreated, gave space, processed. But in my mother's arms, I was quiet. I was still. I had said the truth. I had named the thing that had been poisoning me, and now it was out in the light, ugly and undeniable, and I was still standing. That was the revelation, not the betrayal itself, but my own survival of it. Eventually, my mother pulled back. She wiped my cheeks when had I started crying, and she said, "My house, my rules, David, you need to leave. Alina, you need to leave. Sarah stays." Simple, absolute, the matriarch speaking. David approached, his face a mask of desperation. "Sarah, please, let me explain. There's nothing to explain." My voice was flat empty. "You explained it all in your texts, in your late nights. In the way you stopped touching me. I don't need the details, David. I lived the summary." "I love you," he said, and the words were so absurd, so wildly misplaced that I actually laughed. "You love me," I repeated. "You love me. While you were sleeping with my sister, while you were planning your future with her, you loved me. That's not love, David. That's habit. That's convenience. That's the fear of starting over. Don't insult me by calling it love." He reached for me, and my father stepped between us. "You heard my wife," he said, and his voice was granite. "Get out, both of you, before I do something I'll regret." They left. Separately, Alina in her car, David in ours, though I kept the keys, made him call a ride. I watched them go from the porch, two figures disappearing down the long driveway, and I felt, not relief exactly, not victory, just the end of something. The final page of a book I'd been reading for 11 years finally turned. The rest of the day passed in a blur of concerned faces and whispered conversations. Cousins brought me tea. Aunts shared their own stories of betrayal, of resilience, of life after the thing you thought would kill you. My grandparents, confused by the drama, held my hands and told me I was a good girl, that I'd always been a good girl. And I cried then, really cried, for the girl I'd been and the woman I was becoming. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I walked down to the dock alone. The lake was mirror calm, reflecting a sky full of stars. I sat where Alina had sat, where I'd confronted her, and I tried to feel something specific. Anger, maybe, or grief, or the satisfaction of justice served. But what I felt was loneliness. Profound, oceanic loneliness. The kind that comes from realizing that the life you built was a shared hallucination, that the people you trusted were actors in a play you didn't know you were in. I was 34 years old. I was childless, soon to be divorced, estranged from my only sibling, standing at the edge of a future I couldn't imagine. And yet there was something else, something small and stubborn and new. A voice that said, "You're still here. You told the truth. You chose yourself." I don't know how long I sat there. Hours, maybe. Long enough for the moon to set, for the sky to lighten at the edges, for the world to turn toward morning without my permission or participation. When I finally stood, my legs were stiff, my eyes dry, my heart was still broken, but it was beating. It was still beating. The video went viral, though I didn't know it at the time. My cousin's teenager had been filming the group photo setup, had captured the whole thing on her phone. She posted it that night, thinking she was documenting family drama, and by morning, it had thousands of views. By the end of the week, millions. I found out when a reporter called my mother's house, asking for comment. Then another. Then my phone, which I'd turned off, started buzzing with notifications when I finally charged it. Messages from old friends, from colleagues, from strangers who'd seen my pain broadcast across the internet and felt the need to weigh in. Some called me brave, a hero for women who'd been silenced. Others called me cruel, said I should have handled it privately, that public humiliation was never justified. They analyzed my tone, my outfit, the angle of my body as I spoke. They made theories about my marriage, my sister, my mental state. I was a feminist icon. I was a bitter woman scorned. I was everything everyone needed me to be to confirm their own beliefs about betrayal, about family, about the proper way to break. I didn't watch the video for 3 weeks. When I finally did, sitting in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house, I barely recognized myself. The woman on the screen was so calm, so controlled, so finished. She looked like someone who had already left, who was already gone from the life she was describing. And I realized, watching her, that I had. In that moment on the lawn, I had left my marriage, my sister, my old self. I just hadn't physically walked away yet. The aftermath was administrative. Divorce papers filed quickly. David didn't contest anything, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of fear of more public exposure. I took the house, the dog, the savings we'd built. He moved to another state, started over, became someone else's problem. I heard, through the grapevine, that he and Alina tried to make a go of it, moved in together. Lasted 6 months before the reality of what they'd done, the weight of it, crushed whatever fantasy they'd been living. Alina reached out once. A letter, handwritten, pages and pages of explanation and apology and memory. She wrote about our childhood, about the time she'd protected me from the neighborhood bully, about the night our father had his heart attack and we held each other in the hospital waiting room. She wrote about David, about how it had started, about how she'd told herself it wasn't real, wasn't serious, until it was too late to stop. I read it twice. Then I put it in a box, along with our photos, our shared history, the evidence of a sisterhood that had meant everything to me. I haven't spoken to her since. I don't know if I ever will. That's the thing about betrayal at this level. It doesn't just break trust. It breaks the story you tell yourself about who you are, who your people are, what love means. And you can't just glue that back together with apologies. Sometimes the broken thing is too shattered to fix. Sometimes you have to sweep it up and move on. I moved to a new city. Started a new job, still social work, but with trauma survivors now, which feels appropriate. I learned to be alone, really alone, without the noise of a relationship to distract me from myself. I went to therapy. I cried in my car. I made new friends who didn't know my history, who saw me as I was, not as the woman from the viral video. And slowly, very slowly, I started to trust again. Not men, specifically, though I did eventually date, carefully, with boundaries like fortress walls. But trust in general. Trust that I could survive, that I could choose wrong and recover. That my worth wasn't determined by who loved me or who stayed. The video still exists. It still circulates occasionally when someone needs an example of epic revenge or public breakup or woman scorned. People use it to make points, to start arguments, to feel something. And I've made peace with that mostly. It's not my story anymore. It belongs to the internet, to the viewers, to whoever needs it to mean whatever they need it to mean. What it means to me is simpler. It means the day I stopped pretending. The day I chose truth over comfort, reality over performance, myself over the roles I'd been assigned. It was the worst day of my life, and in some ways, it was the first day of my real life. I still go to the lake house. My parents still host the reunion, though it's smaller now, quieter. The group photos continue, but I stand in the back now, on the edge, not in the center. I smile, but it's a different smile. Smaller, more real. There's an empty chair in the photos now, where Alina used to stand, where David used to be. The family doesn't mention it, but we all see it. The space where something used to be. The negative space that defines the shape of what remains. Sometimes, late at night, I watch the video again. Not the viral one, the private one, the one my mother took on her phone after everyone else had gone inside. Just me, standing on the lawn, looking at the lake, the wind moving my hair. I'm not doing anything, just breathing, just being alive in the aftermath. And I look at that woman, that survivor, that stranger who wears my face, and I send her love. I send her the love she couldn't give herself back then. I tell her, "You did it, you're still here, and that is enough. If you've made it this far, thank you. For listening, for witnessing, for being here. Subscribe to the channel and get a surprise soon. Like this video, share it with your friends, and comment your honest opinion below. Tell me about your empty chairs. Tell me about the day you chose yourself. I'm still here, I'm still listening, and I'm still breathing."